some things are worth repeating. Um, I want to thank all of you for putting up with me and tolerating me. This is very good therapy for me to know that I have a mere handful of subscribers. Um, some have already left. That's understandable. Um, because this is therapy. Being homeless is quite a lonely experience, and I don't reach out to any of you personally for advice or help because I don't need to. And that may sound ostentatious and presumptuous on my part to make that claim, but let me explain. And this is the part that's repetition. Um, Back in 2015, I went to my third summer conference that Aaron Murakami and Peter Lindemann were putting on, Science, Energy, and Technology Conference in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, I think was that 2015 conference. I had gone to previous ones, 2013 and 2014, in which they were at Hayden, Idaho. And what happened was I never understood a word anybody said. I went right over my head. I was wowed, especially by people like John Bedini, what he was able to do that he could not commercialize, like his cross interference of sound from a mono recording from the 50s. He cross interfered it in such a way that using nothing more than stereo speakers at the front end of the lecture hall, he managed to put in my mind and in everybody else's the simulation of multiple speakers more even than quad. You know, quad was a big thing in the 80s, quadraphonic, but this was even beyond quadraphonic. You literally felt like different pieces of the orchestra and the singer were in different parts of the room, very finely, very accurately pinpointed. You could pinpoint it with your brain, and this is because he said he would subtract certain waves from other waves. He would add and subtract the various waves that were already in the recording, the mono recording, and it created the illusion of depth. Or well, it was very convincing. And he said the studios, the film industry that he went to with his invention, were not interested. Oh, we have our own system. We don't need anything new. And he was so destitute, so downtrodden, so not feeling very happy about being. So he didn't know. He did it for them, and he didn't know of anybody else who would be interested. So he was stuck with an invention that does not see the light of day. That, you know, except for his presentation at the 2013 conference, he was the first. That was the first presentation, Saturday morning, and I had made all kinds of mistakes with my flight, such that I had to drive all night long from Seattle to get to Idaho instead of coming in to Spokane or Spokane. Um, so I was in no shape to not only understand but to pay attention. I kept falling asleep, but you know, all day, especially in the morning, I had to really slap. You know, it was rough. It was brutal to try to stay awake since I'd paid money, you know, and come all this way. Um, I had to wait for a helicopter overhead. Okay, so what happened was in 2016, I had the intuition: don't go. There's there's going to be problems at the airport uh, when I try to pass through the what do you call it, the security, and I ignored it. All the intuitions I was having, you know, periodically, not constantly. I wasted $900 because at the last minute, like a few days prior, during morning meditation, it came to me as clear as day: don't go. There's a safety issue here. There's a risk, a very real risk to my person, that I'm going to be put through something stressful that I could just as well avoid. So I canceled, and Aaron was nice enough to give me access to all of the presentations for free. So I downloaded them for free. But I lost $900 on the plane flight because I tried to get the cheapest rate that was non-refundable. The the bed and breakfast, everything, the rental car, I lost $900, and I felt really badly. Well, that was 2016. Later on in the fall, John Bedini dies. And something, I can't remember when exactly it happened, whether it might have been before he died. I think so. Before he died, but after the conference, sometime several weeks or a few months afterwards, but while he was still alive, I had this intuition that I don't need to go, because I found within myself the channel of intuition that is available, that is made available for that particular branch of knowledge. That is not very popular. Most people don't go there. Free energy is, and the fringe science of electrical engineering maybe is the better way to put it. Not pseudoscience, but it is fringe, to be sure. That is much I can admit to. I had connected to that channel. You see, there are indeterminate number of channels and branches, sub-branches of channels of knowledge coming directly from the source, from God. And, oh, here we go again. And if you get connected to somebody's channel, then you don't necessarily need a teacher, because now you can access the knowledge yourself. You still have to do the work, but you don't have to go to a person or an individual, a master who has mastered this, for correction, for advice, for guidance, because you will be able to get that from yourself. Now, you have to be intuitive, for starters. You have to have an intellect capable of analysis and logical thinking. And you have to follow certain rules like self-consistency with your reasoning, and other rules of engagement, such as it's good to look at things from different angles, because normally you would go to different sources to confirm, to corroborate. But when you're not going to anybody, then you have to choose experiments that are different in their point of view, so that you can see the situation from multiple points of view, so that you can get differing opinions of your own, to compare and contrast them against one another. Anywho, otherwise you just take things on faith that the one time you did it was the correct way. And unless you have strong feelings, and which in a technical field such as electrical engineering, it's pretty hard for me to have strong feelings anymore. Maybe in the beginning when I knew nothing, but the more I know, the less I feel like I'm certain about what I know. And anybody who has spoken on this topic has said the same thing. You become more like Socrates and say, "I don't know anything." um, I'm not there yet, but so that was the side effect, the benefit. So I paid $900 for that, I guess you could say, or I could have gotten it for free. Who knows if I would have had to pay or not to get the same result. Anywho, that's why I don't worry about it anymore. And it is from that point forward, that was 2016. That's when I began my simulation work, because I was watching a movie and it inspired me to get on the ball and look for a simulator whose source code I could have access to. And that got me started. And I've been simulating ever since, and now I'm ready in the last 2 years, really, to graduate out of simulation work. But being homeless has been quite a distraction. But things have settled down, and I'm no longer have those distractions, because I'm not in the rat race of making money. I'm in the poverty non-race of trying to cut my expenses, as the secondary way of making money is you cut your expenses instead of making more money. So certainly less stressful, and it gives me free time to really live the life that retired people live. I don't like to admit that I'm retired most of the time. I just say, well, I'm out of work. But I've never had to work a day in my life until recently, so I don't know. how do you call it? You can't call that retired. It's just when you're a trust fund baby, living off of mom's wallet. Um, anyway, what can you do? So I needed to say this because people don't like my attitude when I go on forums. They say, well, you don't respect us. Well, I don't need to because I think what you're saying is wrong. So why would I want to give any credence at all when I know it's wrong? When I know you're not, that you're ignoring these other things that you are not taught or that you don't think are worthy of consideration, blah, blah, blah. So they get very insulted. In fact, one administrator actually closed my account at that forum and said explicitly, you insulted me, because he said something and I did not refer to it. I simply went on with other things that I felt I needed to say in order to show him maybe a different perspective of what I was failing to get through his thick coconut of a brain, his obstinacy, because his training was he was so conditioned with his training that he just saw things one way and that was it. And so it's no small wonder he became insulted. He's not really capable of multiple points of view. Nope, I don't think so. So I wasn't surprised. Well, I was momentarily shocked, but not really surprised because, his attitude was pretty obvious. But that's what happens. Because I've learned this on my own, and I've not really learned it, I'm merely recalling it from my soul. And because my soul memory is, for the most part, all theoretical, with only a limited amount of expertise, I did do some things back in that day, thousands upon thousands of years ago, but mostly I was teaching the theory, and I did have an opportunity to put something into motion. I was what we would call a crazy mad scientist, and so I did something very stupid, but I did do something, and it was very effective at being globally destructive. Not for this planet, a different one, the comet belt between Mars and Jupiter. It was mismanaged long after I was dead, and I was stupid enough to put into motion something that should never have been put into motion because I just assumed it would never be mismanaged, and yet it was. Because stupid people can come along and say, "Well, we know better," or let's make changes." See, don't do well. So they made changes, and that planet no longer exists. It's now a comet belt between Mars and Jupiter. Anywho, so that's what I needed to say to get off my chest. So at first it sounded like bragging, and then it sounds like I'm confessing my sins, because whatever. Enough said, I guess.